Hello. So, I've decided we need to talk about TikTok. And this subject was prompted by my coming across an article in Vice. It says here, banning TikTok is a human rights issue. So, of course, I just wondered what they meant by a human rights issue. After all, it's a Chinese program invented by a Chinese company called ByteDance. TikTok started as a small music sharing program in 2012. It then merged in 2016 with another app called Douyin, and it became an international phenomenon around 2018. So, 2 years. That's how long TikTok has been a thing. And although it gives the kids a lot of fun, and even though it might have started with only that intention, we can never be sure that it doesn't have a secondary purpose. So, back to the human rights issue. China is restricting the human rights of people in Tibet and Hong Kong, and to say nothing of the restrictions it places on every Chinese citizen in every aspect of their lives, and actually outright imprisoning millions of Chinese Muslims for re-education. So, let's have another think about whether banning TikTok is itself a human rights issue, given that China itself is a human rights issue. What does it say here? There are no easy answers. Well, in my humble opinion, there are. Actually, the answer is we shouldn't be using any Chinese software. And I'm not a computer expert, but I think we should also be looking at the hardware as well. Although that's going to be really tough on Apple, isn't it? So what does this author say? Banning an app used by billions of people to express themselves should not be taken lightly. I would like to point out to Vice here that banning cigarette smoking was an issue that affected millions of people. Let's just go for something else. Slavery. That's a fashionable subject right now. Slavery as an institution has been, well, it goes right back to the beginnings of recorded time and has affected billions of people throughout human history. Is that an argument for not banning it then? I don't think so. Way back beyond the mists of history, but I can't imagine anyone at Vice suggesting that because of its previous widespread popularity, well, with everyone except the slaves, that is, we should consider carefully whether we should do without it. Popularity just isn't an argument. So, back to TikTok. Vice says we have to think carefully about agreeing to its banning, even though it's being run by an organisation which is, per force, an agent of an oppressive country, because that's Chinese law. I'm not blaming the guy who owns TikTok. Under Chinese law, any company owned by a citizen of China is legally bound to serve the interests of the Chinese Communist Party and do what the Chinese Communist Party deems necessary. That's the law. And if they can't get at the Chinese citizen because they're not there, they will get at the Chinese citizen's family. As a growing list of companies and government officials issue warnings about the use of TikTok, citing privacy and security concerns, yes, privacy and security, well, they're not really that important, are they? The popular video sharing app is denying that it shares its users' data with the government of China. Yes, and if you believe that, please email me. I've got a bridge I'm willing to sell you. Questions about TikTok and its Beijing-based parent company, ByteDance, are not new. TikTok has in the past faced concerns about its growing influence in the United States. It has also been accused of censoring user content critical of China. What do you mean, accused? It does. In November of last year, TikTok apologized to 17-year-old user Feroza Aziz after a video she posted criticizing China's treatment of the Uyghur Muslims was removed on the platform, calling the decision a human error that should not have happened. As a matter of fact, we can't really blame TikTok for that. When we let Twitter and Facebook do the same sort of thing over here in the West. So, moving swiftly on, in the last few weeks, though, pressure on TikTok has hit new levels. Pressure on TikTok has hit new levels. Here's the English teacher in me. What does this guy think he's talking about? You can't hit levels with pressure. You can only increase or decrease pressure. What you can say is the increase or the decrease might have a level, but not the pressure itself. People don't think what they're talking about anymore. The app has left Hong Kong. I like that. And that is so mealy-mouthed. And if I had no idea about the general political leaning of Vice, I would know what it was just from that. Just look how careful he's being here about offending the Chinese. The app has left Hong Kong. What do you mean? It just packed its bags and got on a plane? No, what the writer means, but won't say, because Vice leans to the left, obviously, what the writer means is that China has decommissioned TikTok from Hong Kong because TikTok is aimed at Western consumers and China's decided to absorb Hong Kong into the Chinese mainland and therefore into the propaganda system of the Chinese mainland. Right, to continue. India has banned it and politicians have suggested the US should do the same. Now, India is on the front line. It's had trouble with China for years on its northeastern borders, and China has more or less swallowed up Pakistan on India's northwestern border. And now China's doing a deal with Iran. Well, it's been doing deals for a while, but the connection is getting stronger and stronger. I'll put a map up here and you'll see how that top bit of India is sort of being threatened with a sort of Chinese pincer up there, and India's probably feeling that quite sharply. As for us, well, Boris Johnson, you see, we should be feeling it too, even though we don't have China squeezing us from both ends of both sides of our border. You know, Boris Johnson made this huge announcement a couple of weeks ago because he realised that the deal that he was trying to make with Huawei was becoming increasingly unpopular, and he was probably facing a revolt not only from just a few members of Parliament, the Conservative members of Parliament, call themselves the Wolverines, by the way. This was months ago. Now, I think most of his MPs would be prepared to vote with the opposition on Huawei, given a chance. He made this huge announcement a couple of weeks ago, acknowledging the problem with China and the concern about Chinese software spying on us, and he, something he didn't say, the possibility that China could actually shut us down at crucial times if they got into our computer systems, into our defense systems, or even shipping or weather systems. You know, they could cause chaos if they got into it. And so he says, we're going to get rid of all Huawei's involvement in our 5G program by Ta-da! 2023. 2023. That's 3 years away. A week is a long time in computing. He's talking about 3 years. God knows what China can do in 3 years. Tomorrow, Boris, tomorrow. Anyway, Amazon told employees to remove TikTok from their work phones and then said that the original one was sent in error. I'll tell you what, I'll bet you that Amazon suddenly got a directive from on high, I mean from Beijing, that Amazon had better toe the line or no more cheap handbags from some sweatshop in Shenzhen, or no more hair shaved off Uyghur women for your cheap wigs. Yeah, Amazon pulled back on that one pretty sharpish, didn't it? Next, and Wells Fargo also told employees they must delete the app. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in an interview that the Trump administration is looking at banning TikTok and other Chinese social media apps. You shouldn't be just looking into it. China is not a friend of the West. We actually shouldn't be buying stuff from them. I go on Amazon a lot. I'll tell you, I wanted to buy a plastic lid to go on the dog food tin. So I looked through Amazon, and every single place where they were selling these tin lid plastic things, they had Chinese names. So I just, and the thing was, Amazon don't tell you. So I finally found a British supplier of these plastic lids. And I bought the plastic lids from them. And yeah, guess what? When it arrived from the British supplier, there on the package of the lids, you guessed it, made in China. The question being raised by Silicon Valley, by politicians, by governments is what should be done about TikTok? And my answer is, what shouldn't be done? It shouldn't be used. Anyway, the bulk of the public argument thus far has been that because ByteDance is a Chinese company, it cannot be trusted to be independent from the Chinese Communist Party. Oh, now that's a novel idea. And the sun comes up in the east, you know, and could use TikTok as either a spying or influence tool in other countries. You don't say. Proponents of a ban are speaking in absolutes about what is a complicated and nuanced situation. Look, it's neither complicated nor nuanced. Kids are addicted to a video sharing app. It's fun, it's creative, you can do lots with it. But it's almost certainly spyware as well. There's nothing complicated about that at all. You remove it from your phone and then you find another app to occupy your time. One will turn up very quickly. TikTok is the first major, well-funded foreign social media company that has become massively popular with Americans, not just Americans. The debate over TikTok is similar to that over Huawei, another Chinese technology company that has been widely banned in the United States and several other countries. If the Chinese government can spy on us through TikTok, then they'll do that. If they don't have TikTok, then they'll find something else, if they're allowed to. There's a chap called Serpent-Tsar. I hope that's how he pronounces the name. He's an American or maybe a Canadian, I'm not sure. He used to live in China and did quite well there. I saw a video he made recently, and I'm sorry I can't find it again because this was just a little section in a larger piece. But he talks about the Chinese version of TikTok, which is called Douyin. And there was one repeating clip which kept turning up again and again. As with TikTok, these things are supposedly coming from ordinary Chinese, but in this case, they all have the same format and they use the same words. And it's like this. It takes the form of a Chinese person, it's usually a girl, not always, having a conversation with some foreigners they've bumped into in a bar or a shop or some other meeting place. And they compliment her on her good English and suggest that she find work in America. And she always answers that she would rather stay in China. And that the Americans would do better to polish up their Chinese because quite soon China will rule the world. And that is always there. The other elements might change slightly, but that never does. China will rule the world. And he showed several examples. So it's obvious these kids are repeating a script coming straight from the Chinese government. So we have it direct from the Chinese government, their ambition to rule the world. And we have to be aware of that. TikTok's public-facing issues aren't all that different from those facing YouTube or Facebook. And I'm afraid that's true. But although we all know that YouTube and Facebook both need a good smacking, at least if we had the will, we'd be in a position to give them a good smacking. If our governments wanted to check their business practices or programs, they'd be able to do that. But we have no control over TikTok propaganda, and even less against those little back doors and unfriendly couple of lines of programming that we all have to be aware of in such apps as TikTok. But banning TikTok in the United States would be an extreme measure. For the record, it would be a sensible measure. Vice quotes, this guy, Peter Micek, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that properly, they describe him as a digital human rights expert for an outfit called Access Now. And you know, that's odd. I don't remember Peter Micek's name coming up when Count Dankula was being arrested for making a joke. Anyway, Mr. Micek says this: banning apps is an extreme measure that does not meet international human rights standards. And then he says, under international human rights law, blocking an entire service or application is not regarded as necessary and proportionate and has been declared unlawful in several instances. And my answer to Mr. Micek is as follows. TikTok can be used as spyware. Most of the 5G stuff China is installing on a street corner near you can be used for spyware. And it shouldn't be allowed on platforms and in countries that China wants to destroy. And it has said it wants to destroy us. Just let's get back to those Douyin clips where they say China will rule the world. We all know they will have to destroy us to do that. Oh, also, just to make us all feel so much more secure, China has just signed a huge deal with Iran, another country self-confessedly determined to destroy the West. And by the way, China is in the process of establishing Chinese factories in Iran. Just shows you what a state Iran is in, where their labour will cost less than Chinese labour. Anyway, they're establishing Chinese factories in Iran so that Iran can sell its products as Chinese to get round the embargoes. Did you know that? If you read the MSM, you'd never know that. Oh well, that's it. You know, I should access this Vice site more often. It's full of fun and rubbish, isn't it? Why don't you treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of promotional merchandising? The Graniopteryx t-shirt or the Granbo mug, which comes in 2 flavours, with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. And whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.